What if the story you were told about love, about women, about desire, was never yours to begin with? What if the dreams you've been chasing were placed there not by your soul, but by instincts you don't control and ideals you inherited without consent? Have you ever stopped to question why your heart aches when she's not around? Why you feel like a failure when she doesn't choose you? Why you're convinced that the validation of one person, one woman, can give your life meaning? You haven't, because we've all been conditioned not to. From childhood, we're handed scripts. We watch the hero win the girl, and we absorb the lesson. Your worth will be proven not by your mind, not by your courage, not by your discipline, but by her attention. And so we chase, blindly, desperately, as if the absence of her gaze is a reflection of your inadequacy, as if loneliness is punishment, as if love is the finish line. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this madness clearly, not with bitterness, with clarity. He dared to question what most never will. Is romantic love really noble? Or is it a biological illusion? One that uses your deepest longing to fulfill a purpose you never agreed to? We don't like this question because it burns, because it threatens the one thing we've been told to believe in unconditionally, that she will save you. She won't. Not because she's evil, not because women are cruel, but because no human being is meant to complete another. That fantasy was sold to you, because a man chasing a woman is easier to control than a man chasing meaning. Look around. The world is full of men working jobs they hate, buying things they don't need, to impress women who don't see them. And still they go home at night and wonder why they feel empty. You've been lied to, not just by media, by biology, by evolution. Schopenhauer wrote, "Love is nothing but the conscious trick nature plays to ensure the survival of the species." You call it destiny. Nature calls it reproduction. But here's the hard truth. You can't awaken if you're still sedated by fantasy. You must ask the questions you fear. You must see beyond the illusion. You must be willing to walk alone, without applause, without approval, without her. Only then will you begin to see her clearly, not as savior, not as villain, as human, and more importantly, see yourself. Because this is not about hating women. It's about unlearning the myth that says you are only whole through their love. It's about reclaiming your focus, your energy, your purpose. You have been kneeling before an altar that never belonged to you. It's time to rise. She was never the answer. You were, but you weren't ready to hear that. Until now. You've blamed her. Quietly. Not in anger, but in confusion. She didn't call back. She didn't choose you. She walked away. She changed. She wasn't who you thought she was. But maybe she never promised to be. Maybe the real betrayal was the image you built of her in your mind. The illusion you clung to, shaped not by who she is, but by who you needed her to be. We project. All of us. We turn people into symbols, into ideas, into saviors. And when reality refuses to conform, we suffer. Not because the person failed us, but because the fantasy did. This is the delusion Schopenhauer pointed to. His critique of women was not rooted in misogyny, but in brutal honesty about human desire. He didn't hate women. He distrusted the idealization of them. And more than that, he distrusted the man who needs to idealize her. Do you? Think about it. When you fall in love, what do you really fall for? Her smile? Her voice? Or the story you begin to tell yourself? She sees me. She completes me. She gives me meaning. But that story is not love. It's dependence. It's fantasy. It's escapism. And it's not her fault. She was never obligated to fulfill your script. She is not an actress in the movie playing inside your skull. She's not here to validate your wounds, to mother your pain, or to give your life direction. She is not the problem. The illusion is. The illusion says she is the reward, the test, the goal, the embodiment of all the things you never gave yourself. No wonder you're disappointed, because deep down, you don't want her. You want what you think she'll fix. But no woman, not the most beautiful, not the most loyal, not the most inspiring, can heal the ache of a man who doesn't know who he is. And when she leaves, you mourn. But who are you mourning? Her or the fantasy? Schopenhauer understood this. He wrote, "The sexual impulse is the most vehement of desires, the desire which overcomes the strongest resistance, and which in its satisfaction seems to fulfill the most urgent need." That's not romance. That's biology. It's not personal, but you took it personally, because no one taught you to separate desire from truth. No one taught you to see through the mirage. No one told you. You are the architect of your own deception. So you blamed her. But she never asked for the pedestal. She never promised to be your savior. She never owed you the dream. Look closer. You weren't in love. You were in need. You weren't heartbroken. You were disillusioned. She is not the problem. Your unconscious mind is. Your hunger to be loved without having learned to love yourself. Your craving to be seen without ever facing your own reflection. Your obsession with the feminine not as a person, but as a cure. And that's why men break. Not from rejection, but from the crumbling of the myth they wrap their soul around. It's not weakness. It's blindness. You didn't know. You were following the script, the cultural programming, the poetic lies. She will complete you. She will fix the ache. She will show you who you are. But she won't. She can't. And she shouldn't. Because love is not salvation. It's recognition. And you cannot recognize anyone if you've never recognized yourself. Schopenhauer was right. Nature doesn't care about your dreams. It uses illusion to ensure survival. And we, in turn, use each other to fill voids we refuse to confront alone. So stop looking at her. Start looking at the story you've been telling yourself. Tear it apart, ruthlessly, until what's left is not the princess or the prize, but a person. Flawed, whole, real. Then, and only then, can you love. Not because you need to, but because you choose to. She is not your mirror, not your mother, not your medicine. She is herself, and so are you, but only if you burn the illusion first. This is your task, not to chase her, but to confront the part of you that believed she would save you, and let it die, so you can finally begin to live. You thought you were free, because you had the right to choose, to chase, to want, to love. But desire isn't freedom. Desire is a leash. Ask yourself this: who is in control, you or your longing? What drives your thoughts when the night grows silent? What pulls your attention when you try to focus? What emptiness are you always trying to fill? And who told you that she was the answer? They never said it out loud, but it was everywhere. In the books, in the films, in the silence between your father's words, in the worship of beauty, in the reward of conquest. You never chose this hunger. It was chosen for you, and now you live for her smile, for her approval, for her attention. You call it love, but Schopenhauer called it compulsion. He saw it for what it was, the will to life, not yours but nature's. Your biology dressed in poetry, your instincts pretending to be soul. Desire, he wrote, is the root of all suffering. Buddha said the same. And yet, here you are, still suffering, still chasing, still believing that if you could only have her, you'd finally be whole. But how can that be freedom? When your happiness depends on something, or someone, you cannot control. This is slavery, not with chains, but with hope, with fantasy, with illusion. You work harder, you look better, you learn lines, master charm, read her moods, shape yourself for approval. You become an actor in your own life, and slowly you disappear. Why? Because you think if you win her, you win peace. But you won't. You'll win more hunger, more fear, more pressure, because what you thought was love was really addiction. And addiction is never satisfied. Desire is clever. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It convinces you that it's your idea, that she's special, that this time it's different. But it's not different. It's the same ancient loop. Crave, pursue, possess, lose, repeat. And where are you in this? You, the man? You, the soul? You, the mind that once had dreams larger than validation? Gone. Traded. For dopamine. For distraction. For the illusion that you matter, if she thinks you do. Is that why you were born? To beg for affection? To become a product, optimized for attraction? You were a king once. In your mind. In your solitude. Before they told you that you are nothing without her. But you forgot. You forgot that freedom is not having options. Freedom is not chasing fantasies. Freedom is not the liberty to indulge every impulse. Freedom is restraint, discipline, awareness. Freedom is seeing the trap and stepping around it, not because you don't feel the pull, but because you know where it leads. She is not the problem. Your enslavement to the idea of her is. And that is where men fall. Not to women, to the story of women, to the myth, to the promise that somewhere out there, someone will fix the ache. No one will, and no one should, because that ache, it's sacred. It's yours. It's the call not to chase, but to awaken, to question, to break the pattern, to stop being a puppet of your instincts. Desire isn't evil, but it isn't God either. It's not your master, unless you let it be. The choice is yours, not between her and solitude, between blindness and vision, Because when you see clearly, you stop chasing. And when you stop chasing, you start creating. Not just love, but meaning. You don't need her. You need truth. And truth doesn't seduce. It strips. It doesn't flatter. It confronts. It doesn't feed desire. It kills it, so you can finally be free. And in that freedom, you might love, but not from need, from choice, from presence, from power. Not the power to conquer, the power to walk away from the very thing that once ruled you. That is freedom, and it begins when you stop mistaking desire for destiny. That's what Schopenhauer tried to tell you. You just weren't ready to hear it. Until now, you were taught that power lies in possession. The house, the car, the girl, the money, the likes, the applause. But is that power? Or is it dependence dressed in gold? What if the real power is something else entirely? What if the greatest threat to a system built on insecurity is a man who no longer needs validation to breathe? Look around you. Who are the men praised? The ambitious, the hungry, the ones who made it. And who are the men feared? The quiet ones, the content ones, the ones who walk away from the game entirely. Because they can't be bought. They don't dance for likes. They don't shrink for approval. They don't modify their truth to win affection. They are dangerous, not because they harm, but because they show the rest of us what we gave up. You see him and feel something crack inside, because he reminds you, you once had peace too, before you sold it, to please, to rise, to compete. They don't want you peaceful, because peaceful men don't consume compulsively. Peaceful men don't perform for digital applause. Peaceful men don't sacrifice their soul to be seen. So from the start, you're taught, enough is never enough. More is the mantra. Achievement is the god. But no one tells you that the hunger never ends. The more you feed it, the more it demands. And one day you're successful, and still feel empty, because you became what they wanted, and lost who you are. The man who redefines success is the man who becomes a mirror. He doesn't argue. He doesn't boast. He doesn't chase. He simply exists unshaken. And in his stillness, he undoes the lie. You begin to question, why am I trying so hard? Who am I trying to impress? What am I afraid of if I stop performing? He has no crowd, but he has clarity. No trophies, but peace. No followers, but integrity. He is not against success. He just redefines it. It's not in accumulation. It's in alignment. Not in applause, but in authenticity. Not in control, but in connection with truth, with self, with silence. He is free, because he's not playing someone else's game. And when you meet a man like that, you remember. Success isn't what you win. It's what you no longer need to prove. You don't need more. You need meaning. And you can't buy meaning. You build it inside. So stop performing. Start remembering. You were not born to impress. You were born to be real. That is the only success worth chasing, and the only one they can't take from you. You were taught that power lies in possession. The house, the car, the girl, the money, the likes, the applause. But is that power? Or is it dependence dressed in gold? What if the real power is something else entirely? What if the greatest threat to a system built on insecurity is a man who no longer needs validation to breathe? Look around you. Who are the men praised? The ambitious, the hungry, the ones who made it. And who are the men feared? The quiet ones, the content ones, the ones who walk away from the game entirely, because they can't be bought. They don't dance for likes. They don't shrink for approval. They don't modify their truth to win affection. They are dangerous, not because they harm, but because they show the rest of us what we gave up. You see him and feel something crack inside, because he reminds you, you once had peace too, before you sold it, to please, to rise, to compete. They don't want you peaceful, because peaceful men don't consume compulsively. Peaceful men don't perform for digital applause. Peaceful men don't sacrifice their soul to be seen. So from the start, you're taught, enough is never enough. More is the mantra. Achievement is the god. But no one tells you that the hunger never ends. The more you feed it, the more it demands. And one day you're successful, and still feel empty, because you became what they wanted, and lost who you are. The man who redefines success is the man who becomes a mirror. He doesn't argue. He doesn't boast. He doesn't chase. He simply exists unshaken. And in his stillness, he undoes the lie. You begin to question, why am I trying so hard? Who am I trying to impress? What am I afraid of if I stop performing? He has no crowd, but he has clarity. No trophies, but peace. No followers, but integrity. He is not against success. He just redefines it. It's not in accumulation. It's in alignment. Not in applause, but in authenticity. Not in control, but in connection with truth, with self, with silence. He is free, because he's not playing someone else's game. And when you meet a man like that, you remember, success isn't what you win. It's what you no longer need to prove. You don't need more. You need meaning. And you can't buy meaning. You build it inside. So stop performing. Start remembering. You were not born to impress. You were born to be real. That is the only success worth chasing, and the only one they can't take from you. They taught you to crave connection, but they didn't teach you how to connect. So you reached for people like lifelines. You mistook presence for intimacy. You mistook attention for love. What if I told you most of what you call connection is illusion? Think about it. You scroll for hours. You message. You match. You meet. And yet you feel more alone than ever. Why? Because the foundation is broken. You are trying to merge with someone before you've merged with yourself. You're asking someone to meet you when you don't know where you stand. That's not connection. That's confusion. Real connection doesn't complete you. It meets you, not in need, but in wholeness. Not in fantasy, but in presence. Schopenhauer warned of the illusion of romantic love, the trick of nature to trap the individual into species preservation. And while his view was stark, his insight was razor sharp. We project our ideals onto others. We fall in love with our own imagination. We don't see people, we see stories. And when reality shows up, we blame them. But they didn't lie. You did. Connection without illusion begins with honesty. Brutal, tender, real. You say, this is who I am. This is what I fear. This is what I want, but I don't need you to give it to me. And in that space, something sacred happens. Two whole people. No masks. No pretending. No rescuing. Just being. Together. And maybe they stay. Maybe they don't. But you remain whole. Because your value was never in their hands. Most people can't handle that kind of connection. It's too real. Too raw. Too unfiltered. We've grown addicted to illusion. To the high of early attention. To the dopamine of the chase. But illusions shatter. And when they do, most run. You won't. Because you're not afraid of the truth. You don't confuse silence with rejection, or space with disinterest. You understand that connection is not constant access. It's not ownership. It's not performing. It's presence. The greatest connection you'll ever have is with your own being. And from that connection, all others emerge. So if you feel alone, don't rush to fill it. Sit in it. Learn from it. Because on the other side of solitude, there is clarity. And in clarity, you don't chase illusions. You invite truth. And if someone steps into that truth, unafraid, hold them gently, but never cling. They are not yours. They are with you. And that is enough.